Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Are you Danielle? No.
No, I'm Tina.
Oh, okay. I'm Christine. I'm with Metro.
Oh, great.
Hey, Jeanette.
Hello. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it a few more minutes to let people filter in and get started. And Kyle, yeah, I'm here. I think I'm already co-host, so it's perfect.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Christine, thanks for joining. It's nice to put a face to the name that we've been corresponding with via email.
I'm so glad, finally. I know you said you take care of some things first, right? And you'll let us know when to start.
Yes, and I will also give ability to share your screen. So just give me a moment to do that. It's not going to be you presenting though, it's your colleague, correct?
Yeah, she's right there, Yuhayna. Hi, Yuhayna.
Yeah,
Hi,
I think
Yuhayna.
actually, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having us. I think Teresa is going to be pulling up the presentation for us, so she'll be running it.
Okay.
Yes,
Then
I
do the
will.
voice piece.
Okay. Teresa, I have made you co-host, so you'll be able to do that at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're right at 6:30 here. I'm going to give folks about another minute to get in while I get my screens organized here, and then we'll get started 1 or 2 minutes after 6:30.
Hi, Tina. Nice seeing you.
Hi, it's good to be here. How you doing, Kulani?
We're doing excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that we're going to have maybe an in-person meeting next time.
Yep, I think that's coming up, and we've got the Spring Fest coming up too, so I'm sure they're going to talk about it, and different things are going on, so we're excited.
Finally.
Even the home tour, I'm so excited about that we're
Oh, man.
going with that. But anyway, I'll let Danielle kind of lead it, so I didn't mean to jump in there.
No, I appreciate it. This is as much a chance for us to meet socially as a neighborhood too sometimes. And it's been a long time since we've been together in person, and definitely looking forward to that. So there's a few folks in the waiting room. I'm just letting them in, and we're gonna get started here. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. This is our April general membership meeting for the Eastwood Civic Association. My name is Danielle LePerrier. I am the president of the Eastwood Civic Association. We like to start our meetings off with some introductions and welcomes, and specifically if there's any new residents or new local businesses in Greater Eastwood that are on the call today. If you want to hop on, unmute your mic for a minute, or maybe turn your video on and say hello, we'd love to hear from you. So give a moment for that if there's anyone on the call. Okay. Hearing no new voices, which is okay. I'm seeing lots of folks here that who've been around for a while. The other introduction or welcome or business off the top before standing business I want to get out of the way is that in our last March meeting, we had a nomination process to fill a director seat on our board of directors, and that nomination was for Lindsay Williams, who's been the chair of our train advocacy committee. So I would like to make a motion to elect Lindsay to that open position unless there are others who would wish to be nominated or heard today. Can I make that motion and get a second? I see a second from Tina. Is there any opposition or discussion we'd like to have? Okay, I'm seeing none. All in favor, raise your hand, and most importantly, if you are opposed, please unmute and say no, because otherwise I'm looking at these screens and saying yes, everyone is okay with this change in our board of directors. Okay, excellent. So we'll have that motion pass, and Lindsay will fulfill the by-election in our open director seat. And as a reminder, come November, we'll have open nominations for director positions that would open up during that term. And so if you're interested, which a couple of people have reached out recently, please let me know and I'll talk you through what that looks like. And we'd love to see some new faces on the board for the next year. Okay, with that, let's move into standing business. And Pulani, I saw a little note that you have a treasurer's report for me, I think. Could you go ahead?
I do. Just 27, so our current bank account right now is 27,757 and 52 cents. And because we haven't really been doing anything, so nothing has changed in actually the last several months. So currently that is the current bank account balance, 27,757.52.
Thanks, Pulani. Motion to accept the treasurer's report. I see Clay. I have a second with Corbin. Any discussion or opposition? Hearing none, so that is approved. Kyle sent me a note that he might be having audio difficulties. Kyle, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are you in a position to give the secretary's report, or should we hold it to the end of the meeting?
Yeah, best to hold it.
Okay, we will have the secretary report at the end of the meeting. And then I'd like to go into committee reports. And I can start us off with, I'm giving a report in Lindsay's absence. She's actually at the super neighborhood meeting for Second Ward tonight to try to hear if they're facing similar challenges with blocked trains in the East End, and to see if there's any collaboration we can do across our super neighborhoods and our civic associations. But what I did want to share is that, as you guys saw, maybe for the first time in the last meeting, we've been collecting data at one specific crossing in the East End, at Eastwood and Rusk, where we have a video camera on residential property that faces that, and we can see the train blockages at that intersection. It also gives us a proxy for the line that runs across Lockwood near Harrisburg, because that is a very busy intersection. And since we don't have a house there that we can get this information from, we use this as a proxy to say if this is happening here, it's likely very similar story 1 block off at Lockwood. So what we saw in March is our busiest month for volume of trains coming through, 188 trains. Of those, 34% of them are stopping for greater than 10 minutes. And the total duration of that blockages over the month was 72 or 73 hours. And with the average length of that blockage being about 68 minutes. So you're waiting about an hour and 10 minutes at the train when you are blocked. What this means overall is that if you count all the hours in the month, 10% of the time, if you're trying to cross that crossing, you're not going to be able to get across because there's a blocked train. So that's fully stopped. That doesn't include how long the trains that come through take to actually move, if they're moving on kind of a regular speed. And our longest single blockage there was 4.7 hours. Overall, March looks a lot worse than what January and February did, a lot more similar to the worst month we have been collecting data for, which was back in November. In terms of an update from the committee, Lindsay sent me some notes here, so I'm just going to pull them up. But they've been very active. The committee's been very active in trying to find ways to move forward with advocating that infrastructure money that's coming out at the federal level for train infrastructure gets put into the East End community of Houston. This is a bigger issue than our little civic association, but the group is trying to do the best they can in advocating for that money to move in our direction. So a few pieces here. Both Lindsay and I have spoken at City Council and encouraged collaboration with federal officials, and our goal is, as I said, to move some federal dollars specific to rail improvements to our area. Lindsay spoke at the Gulf Coast Rail District and received really positive feedback from them that they'd like to continue to collaborate with our civic association and get support for blockages and excessive noise for them, namely in the form of grade separated crossings. And East End Management District has reached out and indicated that this data that we've provided has been very helpful, and they'd like to find ways to collaborate because they're monitoring this issue as well and see it as a problem for their development. The main highlight overall is that a joint committee at the City of Houston will have a follow-up meeting to a meeting we had late January or early February, I can't remember, which UP attended, and they gave an update on rail operations. The Federal Railroad Administrator, so the FRA, really the people who have the ability to influence what the rail operators are doing, are expected to be present. And so that meeting will happen on May 12th. And between now and then, the committee is working to collect residents and business stories and ask folks to come to that meeting, speak up either in person or virtually, and share how this is impacting your life, and kind of make the case that the East End deserves investment to stop the excessive blockages that we've seen over the past several years. If you're interested in participating in that committee, please drop your information in the chat. Lindsay would happily take more volunteers to use and put to work for all the great stuff that they're working on there. I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions about what the committee's working on trains. Okay. I'm hearing none, which is great. The other committee update that I have, I don't think Aaron's on the phone or on the line. Aaron, are you there?
I am here. Sorry. I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Aaron, do you want to share anything with the general membership about home tour?
Sure. Very quickly, we are super excited to announce officially that we are bringing back the Eastwood Historic Home Tour this year. The date is going to be October 15th and 16th, and we will be hosting our first committee meeting this coming Wednesday. So if you have any suggestions for properties, or if you yourself would like to offer your property to be shown on the home tour, then shoot me a note in the chat. Otherwise, we will keep you posted on further developments.
Great. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks for leading the charge on the committee that's bringing us back the home tour after a 2-year hiatus during the pandemic. And then finally, Kyle, I'm going to skip you for communications report, and we can do it at the end when you do secretary's report, if that works for you.
That works.
Okay, awesome. So then I'll move to elected official announcements. I did see a few elected officials on the line earlier who might have updates. If you do, I'm going to start with Gloria Rodriguez because I saw your hand go up. Gloria, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm calling. I'm here on behalf of Councilmember Gallego's office. And regarding Eastwood, I know that HPW has received a request from the Eastwood Civic Association to review whether the existing traffic signal at Polk and Dumble is necessary or can be replaced with stop signs. The department is reviewing and will determine next steps soon. We'll keep the leadership updated as review progresses. Also, there's we're trying to finalize a couple of items. One is the mill and overlay of Dumble from pole to telephone. And number 2, install new speed cushions in the northeast quadrant of Eastwood that the community petitioned. 12 to 14 new speed cushions have been requested by the company. Later this spring or summer, that should be completely finished. And the last is Hire Houston. If you have anybody that are young and want to work for the summer, up to the age of 24, they can apply online at Hire Houston. And the last day to apply is this Friday. And if there's any other questions about any other issues I need to take care of or help with, please let me know.
Thanks, Gloria. We appreciate the update from the office, and from there, I see Hannah Cobb. Your hand is raised. Do you have an elected official update for us?
Yes. Hi, my name is Hannah Cobb. I work for Councilmember Alcorn. She spoke at your last Eastwood Civic Club meeting, and I spoke at the one before that. So I won't take up too much of your time. Just excited to be on and learn more about the BRT going in on Lockwood, and I appreciate you guys having me. I'm going to take all this information back to our office. We are an at-large office, so we deal less with the casework, and but we work well with District I and happy to assist in any way that we can. I'm going to put our information in the chat. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Hannah. From there, I think we'll go to the precinct 6 chief. I believe I'm sorry, my screen is totally messed up. I'm pretty sure I saw you in here earlier. If you'd like to unmute and give an update, please feel free. Pulani, you saw it, Chief as well, right? No, earlier?
Yeah, no, Chief Lozano was here, but I don't see her on it now. She was just there a minute ago. Chief, are you still there? Yeah, she might have just.
She just went back to the waiting room. So let me give her a moment here. Chief Lozano, are you there? And did you have an update for us?
There she is. You're on mute.
You're on mute still. Chief Lozano, we can't hear you.
You're on mute, Lillian. There you go. Good job.
Okay.
Thanks,
Here we
Lillian.
go again. Let's try this the second time. I was having some difficulties here. So I just want to remind everybody when you're driving, not to be distracted, to make sure you plan ahead when you get in your cars, use your GPS, make sure you know where you're going. Don't text and drive. When you're at the bank, make sure that you're paying attention to whether or not you're being followed. Keep your radio down low just to make sure you're paying attention for emergency vehicles. And just stay alert, stay off your phone when you're walking out the malls or the stores, and stay alert because people are watching you guys. People are watching all of us, so we need to stay alert and stay safe. Any questions? Anybody have any issues in the East End that they'd like us to address?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you guys keep track of your when you have emergency calls and how often you have to be rerouted by the train? Is that something you have records on that maybe we could get access to?
We do not. Unfortunately, when you call 911, that call goes to the city of Houston or to the sheriff's department, and then it's rerouted to us. we get that secondhand. We do not get 911 calls. That's why we recommend that you call 911 and then you call precinct 6, because a lot of people don't understand that calling 911 is not calling precinct 6. It's calling the city of Houston or the sheriff's department. So call them first if you have an emergency, and then call us at 713-274-3400. Sorry, Kyle.
Oh,
Next
thanks, thanks, Chief. Any other questions?
Everyone, this is Paul Fagan.
Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, it's not so much a comment, but it's actually just or a question. It's more of a comment. I want to echo what Chief Lozano is saying. I'm just going to relay a quick anecdote that happened over the weekend. I was outside of my house and I was painting with my father-in-law. And, you know, I was kind of just observing some of the changes that are going on. Across the street is Sanctuary, which is the new kind of multi-unit apartment complex. And I was just kind of observing everything. And I saw a young gentleman on a bike pedaling by, and it's Saturday, so the weather was about 85 degrees outside. He was wearing jeans, a hoodie, the hood over his head, and a balaclava, which is a full face cover over his nose and the top of his head. So all you can make out were his eyes. And so I saw him once, I see him again, second time. And throughout the next couple hours, I probably saw him 8 times. And then as I was leaving, I talked to my father-in-law. I was like, we saw him again. And we both said simultaneously, he's been casing this block. And yeah, sure enough, like we hadn't talked about him. We just kind of been noticing him independently. And then when we said that, we realized like, wait a minute, this guy is riding around on his bicycle, which is no problem whatsoever. But just with the dress and the full face balaclava, I'm sorry. Balaclava is a winter outfit. It covers up your nose, your mouth, everything except your eyes. And in 85-degree weather on a beautiful day, but a hot day, it was just a little weird. So please be on guard. Also at the Sanctuary, there were a lot of people moving in. I probably saw 3 or 4 separate cars, just kind of unloading chairs, couches, you know, things like that. So yes, please be on your guard. And that was it. Hope everyone's doing good.
Thanks for the anecdote, Paul, and it's nice to have you in a meeting again. Is there any other elected officials on the line with an update? I didn't see anyone
Can I
else.
quickly follow up on what Paul's anecdote? And I think it's a great one, but my question is always, so when we notice something like that, like, what do you do about that? You know, I mean, that's a specific situation, but even still in general, what would be the best thing for us to do, Sergeant Lozano?
Tina, the best thing to do is if you see something that's suspicious, give us a call. We'll drive by and check it out and give us as much detail as you can, but please do not approach. Call us and we will swing by. Okay, all right. And then just one more super quick question regarding like people who drive super fast down our little streets, you know, and especially like, you know, revving through with glass pipes and everything. Noise is one thing, but the speed is really the issue. Should we also be calling in when we see and hear things like that? Yes, please call in when it's happening. A lot of times people call or they send emails and or post on social media. Call us first. Emails, you know, it's too late for us to respond at that time. So it's so much better for you to call us when they're there. Give us as much information as you can and contact our dispatch. Like I said, post our dispatch number all over the website. We want people to know that they can call us and we'll come by and check anything out. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, I appreciate the updates from our elected officials. And I think with this, I will move it along to our keynote presentation, which is from Metro, and I'll pass the microphone over to Christine.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Christine Moreno-Connor. I'm with Metro. I'm a public engagement representative, and I am here with several of my coworkers, and I want to introduce you to two very important ones. One of them is Jeanette de los Santos, who's brand new. She's going to be the new the new public engagement person in your area. She's taking over for me, so she'll be the one. I think Jeanette's on here. I thought maybe her. I can't see her face. I know she's on there. And then the second
here.
there she is. And the second person I want you to introduce you to is the star of the show tonight, who is Yuhayna Mahmud, who she's our university corridor project manager, and she will be talking about the university corridor. So take it away.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everyone, for having us here. I also have a couple of team members from the project management team. David, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening. I'm David Lear with Metro Project Management Consultant Team.
And Teresa, who's helping us run the presentation.
Hi, I'm Teresa Rodriguez. I'm communications manager on the project, and I'm with Hilde Public Relations.
So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm glad to present MetroRAPID University. We'll give you the MetroNext overview. I know a lot of you are very engaged and have been involved in the process for MetroNext. I'll give you a little bit of the background of that, and then we'll dive into a little bit of the MetroNext project itself. I know that you have some questions about the project. Some of you have already looked at the open house, and we'll have a Q&A, and then Christine will talk a little bit more about the community engagement and public input that we have for this project. So a little bit of background, MetroRAPID BRT project. So MetroRAPID is the, I'm sorry. And so we passed MetroNext in 2019. I'm sure a lot of you voted for that project. It is nearly 70% approval. It is our 20-year transit and transportation plan for the city of Houston and for our service area. And we are moving forward with that project, seeking federal funding. We are right now in what the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, calls the project development process, which is a 2-year process. Basically, we are in the development of conceptual design, and we'll get to a 30% design at the end of this pre-engineering, what is called pre-engineering on 2023, and also do all of the environmental process during this 2 years. So we entered that process back in September 21st of 2021. So we have been, moving forward with looking at the concept of development for implementation of this portion of the MetroNext plan. Here on the right, you can see this is the MetroRAPID Silver Line. One of the pictures, if you haven't had a chance to ride the Bus Rapid Transit in Uptown, this is a picture of what it looks like, that line that we opened back in 2019. So it's still, or 2020. So it's still, I think, some of you may not have gotten out there because of the pandemic, but I encourage you to ride the Silver Line to get some experience about the Bus Rapid Transit. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit of background. Some of you who haven't or didn't participate in this process, this was the plan that was passed, MetroNext Moving Forward plan for transportation and transit. And so if you see the pink lines on the map are Bus Rapid Transit, or the MetroRAPID. And the gray is the Regional Express, which is the plan of having two-way HOVs on those freeways. The extension of the rail would be the blue. Blue lines are rail, which is extension of existing rail. Boost signature services. This is existing high frequency routes where we will be doing improvements on those. And then there are general system enhancements, first and last mile connections, sidewalks, maybe new transit centers, and things like that. So this is what the voters passed back in 2019. Next slide, please. So what is MetroRAPID? This is a bus service. It's a modern design that offers 100% accessibility. So if you look at that second picture here, there's doors. It's a two-door bus. It has wider doors than the existing buses. The platforms are rail-like, meaning that you can stand where the gentleman's standing, and it's level. The bus is level with the entrance of the bus with that step. So you can roll in there easily, you can step there easily. And then it's sort of like, it's a faster service that, it's a couple of seconds that you save if the bus doesn't have to kneel to pick up the passengers. We also are looking at a dedicated transit only lane to move the traffic. So you can see that last picture here and the picture that I showed you in the previous slide, where there is a dedicated lane for bus only. And then the transit friendly signals. So we are working with the city of Houston to have priority for buses where it makes sense along the corridor. And so that's what, that we're doing that with Inter-Katy. This is being done with the Uptown MetroRAPID Silver Line. And we also have these stations in this design. It'll be, something similar. So they're a little bit more protective. The canopies are a little bit wider. There is off bus fare collection so that you would pay off the bus. And then you would have also the signs that will let you, electronic signs that will tell you when the bus is coming, like you do in the LRT, in the rail, basically. Next slide, please. So this is the university corridor. This is the full alignment of this project. It is a little bit over 25 miles. And it begins, I'll start from your left bottom corner, that we call segment 1. So it's a little bit beyond, it's west of Beltway 8, starts on the West Park and Ride, and West Chase Park and Ride. And it goes through, that first segment is mostly on Metro right-of-way. And then we go through on segment 2, moving towards going north on Edlow, and being now on city streets. So we're working with the city so that the bus will be on city streets using some of the general purpose lanes in most of the alignment. Then we go to segment 2, that would be on Richmond. So it goes north on Edlow, Richmond, goes to the Wheeler Transit Center. Then we look at segment 3, which is the universities, TSU, U of H. And then right before that Wheeler Transit Center, I should say, it connects to the red line. And then in segment 3, connects to the purple rail line. We go then north from the Eastwood Transit Center north, and then it connects to the green rail line, moving on Lockwood in your area, going across the Buffalo Bayou, and then moving north to segment 5, all the way to the Tidwell Transit Center. So this is 25 miles, and we have right now a little, 41 stations planned, and we are in the process of looking at ridership and traffic to see the precise placement of those stations. Like I said, we're still in concept, refining our concept. So we're starting to look at different variables of how things are going to end up in terms of station location. Next slide, please. So as you can see, a lot of the alignment is to make sure that we have lots of park and rides that are connecting to the park and rides, that we have connections to transit centers that are existing, connecting to all of our existing infrastructure in terms of rail, including the Silver Line. And so this project is really going to create a lot of connectivity and ease of transfer and mobility from the far west end of our city all the way to the northeast. So it's a very large project, and it's right now one of the longest projects in the country of a bus rapid transit project. So it's world class, and we are very excited about this project coming on our city. For your section here, so we come from U of H, from Elgin, going to 45, get to the Eastwood Transit Center, and then moving north on this segment 4, like I said, connecting to the Metro Rail Green Line, and then going on to the 5th Ward Transit Center. And I think one of the questions that you had posed, and very interestingly that you brought up, that your neighborhood is very interested in, is the rail crossings, right? So in this project, our plans are to cross over, so do a grade separate the BRT lanes from the railroad crossings, and we're working with UPRR to advance that. We have 8 railroad crossings on this project. And so we're working with the railroad closely to do that. We're also coordinating with the city of Houston to see if there's any opportunity that they want, as we are crossing over, if they want to bring the road over the railroad as well, along with this project. So that's something that they will decide whether they have funds to be able to do that part of the project. But and I'll tell you a little bit about the timeline of this project. But those are some of the things that we're looking at, especially in the East End, because it obviously would impact. It impacts the timing of those who want to ride transit as well. So in here, I think there were a couple of questions, and I know the alignment along specifically from 45, where there's the couplet of Ernestine and Lockwood. We are currently looking at different options. Our initial concept was going north on Lockwood, and the southbound going on Ernestine. And so we're looking at those options there in that area. But generally what the cross section or the alignment will look like is that we would be using the inside general purpose lanes to use for bus rapid transit only. And so that's the alignment that we have. That's sort of what we've been working with the city on, is looking at, how many people, looking at throughput, how many people you're getting through, you're riding the bus and cars, how many people can you get through these areas, and how many, what the traffic is today, et cetera. So that's part of the project, is looking at the conditions, existing conditions, and making sure that we're taking that into account when we bring in the bus rapid transit. Do we have the timeline on this one? I don't think we have the timeline on this, but I'll talk through it. So here we go. Good. Thank you, Teresa. So we are here in 2022. This is when I was at the beginning, what we call project development. We are working to complete that, or we need to complete that by September 21st of 2023, basically, because we have that 2-year period that the FDA has given us. And then the project gets rated to be able to receive funding. And then we can start engineering on 2023 through 2025. That's the goal. And then construction for opening year to be 2028. So that's sort of the the plan in terms of a project timeline for this project. Next slide. So I think we're ready for some Q&A. Or David, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you covered it. Give them a
Okay.
chance to ask us questions. It's always the fun part. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the really informative presentation. I have a couple questions in the chat that I'm going to relay from Anita. With the 2 lanes on, I guess, the Lockwood side of Ernestine and Lockwood being BRT, would that mean that we would accommodate 2-way traffic on the other side in terms of car or vehicle traffic?
So we have, it would be one of the lanes going north on Lockwood would be BRT, and then one of the lanes going south on Lockwood, on Ernestine would be BRT.
Okay, I think I also understood it the way Anita did with taking
I'm
both
sorry,
lanes
okay.
on one side and then not uncertainty about the other. So the inside lanes is what you mentioned on both directions where the road splits into 2-way traffic with
Yeah, and like honestly, right now we're exploring some options because there's right-of-way constraints. We know that the Amazon warehouse generates a lot of traffic in and out. So we're looking at what configuration exactly, but the idea is 1 lane in each of those roads would be dedicated to bus.
Okay, and rereading Anita, your question here, you did not have the same question I did. You were specifically asking, do we go down to 1 lane on both sides? And it sounds like yes, specifically in that area, the proposal would have us going down to 1 lane of non-BRT traffic.
So in the Ernestine Lockwood couplet, there's 3 lanes in each direction. So you would be going down to, you'd still have 2 general purpose lanes in the transit lane.
Okay, and then further down Lockwood towards Harrisburg, then it would be one lane in each direction?
Yeah, or there's
Yes.
also the large median there. So we're still evaluating whether or not, depending on the traffic volumes, if we take a lane or if we use the median. And that's going to be a balancing act as we move through the corridor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sure,
go ahead,
yes.
Corbin.
So I guess I'm a little concerned about the median use or on Lockwood here, kind of Rusk Street by the railroad tracks, Lockwood by the railroad tracks, approaching Harrisburg. I mean, why take our pretty median in our beautiful neighborhood away for that? Wouldn't it make more sense? I mean, I understand you're looking at statistics and or analytics and whatnot. Wouldn't it make more sense to go up like Scott Street or something like that, where there's 2 metro rail lines that connect rather than take over a primary neighborhood area?
So it's a little bit about, service. And this was the alignment that was voted on by the voters a couple of years ago. So part of it that is honoring that, but also looking at that alignment and where there is duplicative service versus being able to serve a new community and being able to provide service along those areas. And coming from Eastwood, which is a big transit center, that alignment makes sense. But like David said, we are trying to balance. Can we take the median? Can we narrow the median? What are the options there? And depending on the traffic, we would do one or the other. But the public has wanted more transit since the road capacity. It's getting to be a challenge. Real estate in general for road capacity. So trying to provide a service that is bus rapid transit that can serve people without having to get into a car, or at least provide them options. And that's what people have wanted in terms of transit.
Sure. And I'll just leave it at one other thought, and then, no need to respond on it, but just for consideration, I think that Edo has like the Edo area with all the townhome development, and then you've got the purple line there and you've got the green line versus just the green line here. makes sense. Of course, it makes sense to go down like maybe Ernestine or something to the transit center or however that's accomplished. But I think like from Polk to Harrisburg, there's a pretty boulevard there full of trees. And that was one of the founding principles of the Eastwood neighborhood, was that nature side of it. And so it just seems to me that removing that it's not very attractive, and it's going straight through a primarily residential area, although it does connect to other things. But it just seems like there's already major transit on like Scott Street, Scott Street, I think. So that's just my 2 cents. There's no need to respond in on that, but.
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback.
I have a question. I'm going to kind of piggyback on that thought, but in a different direction. You mentioned the need, obviously the rail crossing is a huge issue for any kind of transit on Lockwood, but you mentioned an overpass. Is there any discussion of an underpass? Because like Corbin was saying, I mean, Eastwood is a deed restricted community, and so it is all residential. And putting an overpass, I'm not an engineer, but I would just imagine that the grading of an overpass to pass over rail would be pretty intense, and therefore there'd be an overpass cutting through the majority of our neighborhood with homes all along that street. I mean, that, in my opinion, would be honestly almost catastrophic to the neighborhood.
So there are challenges with an underpass option. One of them being, the possibility of finding any sort of contamination on the ground, but also really mostly the flooding issue, right? That would be something.
But if they're burying all of the freeways on the east side, it doesn't seem like putting one street underneath on the east side would be a huge issue.
Yes, I guess were you
so it's
when you were thinking about the grade separation of the road, that would be the same thing, right?
Right,
so it would
but
be the grade separation.
Like an underpass for pedestrians seems, and like just the impact on homes that are literally 20 feet away from the roadway, which if you go down Lockwood, I live 1 block off of Lockwood, to have an overpass right there. I mean, I guess just like, are there options? What can we do to have input on how that rail crossing is handled? Because I imagine it wasn't that detailed in what people voted for, but I just...
No, it wasn't that detailed. Basically, people are just looking at a line, and we know that there is concerns about the crossing of the railroad and the delays that is causing for everyone. And so that's what we're trying to work with the city to see if we bring it up, then they can bring the road up as well, and then everything goes up.
Everything goes up through an entire neighborhood that's well over 100 years old. So I don't know what we can do to work with you guys on that and to advocate for some other options perhaps, because just I think, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I feel very strongly that would be a terrible addition to our neighborhood and would really impact the entire neighborhood, not just 1 or 2 homes.
So I will have, I think, Teresa, we probably in the last slide we have where we are, the project management team does look at this website, but then we can start, as we start our second phase of public engagement, there will be additional opportunities for us to start looking at, more detailed conversation in terms of design and such.
Okay.
So this ridemetro.org//university. There's a survey, but there's also just comment opportunity, and you can add your information there and tell us your feedback. And we make sure we're collecting that and making sure that we take that into account for when we go back to the public. Our first part of the public engagement was all online through this open house that I know some of you in the neighborhood have already visited. And our second phase, which we think will be probably in the summer, will will be more of a, I think either hybrid between computer and face-to-face or mostly face-to-face. So that's what we're looking forward to, and we'll have opportunities then. But I think in the meantime, it would be great if you could provide your feedback online.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see several folks with their hands raised, but I'm going to jump back and forth between folks who can't come online to speak and folks who have their hands raised. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions from the chat, and then I'm going to pop over to Paul, who I see next with his hand raised. Maybe a two-parter here. What will happen to stations along Lockwood? Will they shift to be next to rail, where there'll be an increase or decrease in the number of stations? And then is there any data on current ridership through the East End right now and expected ridership with the BRT?
Let me ask a question about the first question. Is that you're talking about whether the rail stations will move closer to the BRT?
No, sorry, the existing Metro bus stations that run along Lockwood, assuming those routes would change their path because the bus rapid transit will.
So there is an overall part of what we are studying right now. Is looking at a service, what we call a service plan, as the BRT will come online. Like what will happen? What will happen to the patterns of people? We don't want to duplicate service with the local bus. So there are some questions that we haven't answered of like whether some routes get rerouted somewhere else that makes more sense to make the connections. Maybe some sections get eliminated because you assume people are going to be walking to the BRT, et cetera. So that is part of the analysis that we do right now. We're also having, I think I forgot the second part of the question. And David, if you were.
The second part was maybe totally different about if there are ridership numbers you can share for existing routes in the East End or projected ridership once
we
in 2020.
could get ridership from the East End. I don't have that here, but Christine, that may be something that we can follow up on with our service plan team in terms of service planning team in terms of the existing ridership. And then for projected ridership, we are looking at sort of like these years of like 2030 and 2040 for the BRT and how that, what we project that ridership to be. I don't know, David, that we have like a model that takes into account all of the the rail and everything else and how things are going to connect. But I don't know that we're not projecting right now numbers specifically for the other bus routes or the other rail. This is specific to the university project. And David, I don't know if there's anything.
We're still, eventually we will have that and we will have the by station, but we're still working on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come back to questions in the chat later, but Paul, I'll hand it over to you for your question.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. I actually have a couple of questions. Is the BRT of a similar size as the light rail right now? Because presently, if you want to bring your bicycle onto onto a bus, you'd have to load it onto the front of the vehicle. Are there dedicated spaces inside the BRT proposed for wheelchairs and strollers and bicycles as there is on the light rail currently?
Yes, so to talk about a little bit about vehicle type. Currently, we have diesel vehicles, for example, on the Silver Line in Uptown, and they have space for bikes and they have space for wheelchairs, and you can bring them on to the vehicle. Having said, and those are about 60-foot long vehicles. So it's more like if you look at the current articulated buses, that's the size of what the bus rapid transit size will be. Having said that, Metro just passed not last board meeting, but the previous board meeting, a plan to start moving to electric vehicles. So it might be that it might feel a little bit differently, but the size of them is the same. But I don't want to make sure that I'm transparent. Just like we're changing vehicles, they might be looking a little bit different, but in terms of size and accommodations, they're very similar to what we have today at the Silver Line, which is like a 60-foot bus, which is like an articulated bus. And like I showed in that picture at the beginning, I'm not sure if you were in the meeting, but there's 2-door, level boarding, and so that's the accommodation for that vehicle.
But it's wider than the standard bus.
It's the same. So the articulated buses. So a light rail vehicle is like 90 feet. The articulated bus is 62 feet. But in the back of the bus, like when you go through the doors on the back side, there's a large area there with no seats. So the seats are configured differently on the LR or on the BRT than they are on a regular standard bus, which is why you have room to be able to bring a bike on or a stroller and just kind of stand there and have room like you do on a light rail.
Okay.
They're not wider, they're the same because we're going to be able to fit them in the existing lane. So they'll fit in an 11-foot lane basically. So it's the same width as the current buses.
Yeah, which is actually the same width as the light rail vehicle. It's not the width, it's the configuration of the seats that makes it different.
Okay, that's my first question. My second question is, how has Metro figured this particular plan with the proposed 45 expansion, which this area, the east end of downtown, is being tweaked by various and sundry forces in so I mean they're looking at the 45 expansion is looking at closing down certain streets and making certain streets one way and making it very difficult to get into downtown. And we're having a proposed overpass in the area. So there's a lot. Well, I'll let you answer. There are just many forces here just kind of saying we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And, obviously with Metro, we have some more say versus with the TxDOT, who says we're going to expand this and we're going to take X, Y, and Z property from you and you're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to force it down your throat.
We are coordinating with all the parties, and we're still 6 years away from the project, so we're trying to do early coordination with communities. We've been working with the city of Houston for several months now. We've started having consistent meetings with TxDOT, we're UPR, and so we're trying to get all the parties aligned to move forward with this project. And we want to make sure that we're implementing something that the community asked us to implement. But of course, it's different, the line on the map to when you get to the details of advancing that. And so that's in the process where we are trying to do early coordination with everyone. But it's going to be a challenge, and there are going to be, it's going to be a balancing act of some of these choices. Not everybody, not all of us are going to get exactly what we want. So there's going to be some choices to be made by all the parties as we move forward.
All right, those are my questions.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Paul.
it. Thank you.
Clay, you have your hand up there. I'll let you go next.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I thank you for making the presentation. I was one of the folks who voted for the transit line. I thought it was a great idea, but I think it comes back to that community involvement too. I'm one of the groups on the train committee. We've been watching the train vehicle traffic problem for a while now and trying to find creative ways to solve it. But I think a lot of us, when we pictured the bus route, did not imagine an overpass crossing over through the middle of the neighborhood. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what that might look like. I know on the Green Line through Harrisburg, there's a spot where it crosses over the rail where they built that rail overpass.
Mhm.
Is this something similar kind of to what you might be describing for the Lockwood crossing?
I would think something, comparable, similar, David. I mean, we haven't designed it per se. We just, but it would be something like that. If it's,
Okay.
only the BRT would be the 2 lanes going over.
And with that, as I understood your comment earlier, is that you anticipate there would be a BRT overpass, and then there might be, if the city can put forward funding or share some sort of agreement, a traffic crossing over Lockwood, but that in either instance, you do anticipate some sort of over rail crossing. Is that correct?
That's what we were projecting for this project. That is correct.
Okay.
That's what we were, but when we were moving forward with this project, it's going over the railroad, over railroads at all locations is what we basically were looking at.
Okay,
Mhm.
I don't want to keep everybody too long. I would want to echo the concerns from Corbin and from Kyle and from Aaron and others that the idea of an overpass going through the neighborhood could potentially bring a lot of advocates for Metro into a fierce opposition. Anecdotally, it seems like, I mean, I would be all for it if it were staying on the ground level. I mean, I would be cheering left and right to say, go Metro, go. But the moment we talk about putting a big overpass right through our historic neighborhood, I think I would immediately shift to complete and total opposition. Just based on the ridership projections that we've seen on the west side near the 610 loop. I know the Chronicle article came out saying that ridership wasn't quite what the Silver Line was expected to see. That may change over time, but I just want to kind of bring that out and throw that out there. But I appreciate you coming to talk to us today.
No, definitely. I mean, and this is exactly what we want to hear, your candid feedback regarding, we want to be as open and early to let you know what we're thinking so that we know what the challenges and what your concerns are. Thank you.
With that, as I just while we have you, one of the things that we've been doing as a civic association is trying to gather as many statistics about rail crossings and stoppages as possible. One thing I would ask of Metro is if your current bus systems have any sort of conflict with current rail traffic stoppages, so freight rail stoppages, if there's any way that our civic association can work with your team to kind of collect and monitor how often current bus traffic is rerouted, we would love to kind of get Metro's thoughts on that data and to share it just in the interest of collecting information, because I think the civic association is trying to be as cooperative as possible with our rail neighbors that we have to kind of find ways that we can work together. And I think if we can avoid the expenses of building an overpass, say, for example, it would keep construction costs lower, but also serve the needs of the neighborhood and serve the needs of Metro while also being good cooperative neighbors with our rail partners. And I'd love to kind of get with anyone on your team to see if there's any way that data can help the both of us in what our goals are, because I think everybody has the right goal in mind, but we want to make sure that that cooperation is helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I'll find out from our service planning team if they have that sort of information from our operators or dispatch, et cetera, regarding delays based on the crossings.
Just out of curiosity, have you been down Lockwood here at Harrisburg, right here at the entrance to Eastwood?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I'm familiar. I have biked. I biked before pre-COVID, but I've driven since.
Okay, so you know how pretty of an area it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it just like, I mean, there's just so much there on Scott, or I mean, I'm not sure Wayside, other areas that aren't as residential, that there's a lot more businesses along access for transportation purposes that maybe would be more beneficial to Houston residents who are riding like the rapid transit lines. Like there's just so many more businesses and commercial activity on some of those other streets. Perhaps not as much Scott as Wayside, but anyway, one other time. So I'll
thank you, Corbin.
I'll be quiet now.
I see Michael's hand up. Do you want to go next, Michael?
Yeah, Danielle, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. I'm gonna save you guys from having to see my face, so I'm not gonna turn my camera on, but I really appreciate Clay's comments earlier about working with Metro. I'm in the same bucket. I voted for it. I'm excited. And I have to disagree with Corbin. I understand the logic of having it on Lockwood simply because of the Eastwood Transit Center. And you know, Lockwood is a major north-south corridor. However, I do share Corbin and Clay's concerns about the oak trees in the Esplanade and the overpass. And I do appreciate Corbin's question that you guys come and put eyes on it, that intersection of Lockwood and the railroad tracks. That is a very narrow area. When I say narrow, I mean the house on the west side of Lockwood, and there's a house on the east side of Lockwood. I would estimate they're about 100 feet apart. So any kind of overpass that remotely resembles what's going along Harrisburg is a non-starter from the neighborhood's perspective, because you've got old oak trees in the Esplanade, 4-lane road with Esplanade in the middle. So those trees would all have to come out. We've got a welcome to the neighborhood sign when you immediately cross over the railroad tracks saying welcome to Eastwood. I mean, it would be very inappropriate to have a large overpass. So I know I'm beating a drum here, but I just want to contribute that comment as well. And then another thing, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but as Clay alluded to, the Lockwood Boulevard is often blocked by Union Pacific for hours on end. And so do appreciate, you know, that the bus rapid transit would still need to get through. But I can imagine a scenario, I don't know how you guys, how it's going to be engineered, but where regular traffic is going to attempt to take that overpass lane because you see cars sitting there for hours and then they're racing through the neighborhood to try to find their way around. But if they see an overpass, even if it says it's bus dedicated, I could foresee that being utilized by entities other than BRT. Because it is a very bad chronic problem in the neighborhood with train blockages. So just wanted to contribute all those thoughts, but I do appreciate that you put your eyes on it. And I'd encourage you guys, if y'all wanted a neighborhood tour just around the area, we'd be happy to help organize that. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to verbalize a couple more comments that are in the chat or questions. And maybe it's twofold. One around an overpass versus an underpass. Obviously, the underpass that exists at Polk Street, just past Cullen, has a grade of about 2.5 blocks by the looks of it. A lot less disruptive to that neighborhood for the trail over, for the Union Pacific rail to go over that. So maybe that's just a piece of information. And Kyle here says, who lives very close to it, I know flooding's an issue. It clears within about 1.5 hours in that area. And so is there a balance between flood events versus the train blockages and the frequency of those occurrences? That's a piece there. And then Kyle also asked around, is there any compromise or design considerations from going to portions that are ever a shared lane with traffic, or is the design concept completely throughout the entire 25 miles of corridor a separated managed lanes just for bus rapid transit?
It's pretty much the entire corridor, a separated managed or separated lanes, dedicated lanes, BRT. We, like I said, we're in concept development. We haven't completed surveys, so there might be tight spots where there is something, or if there's any considerations that either TxDOT or the city of Houston might bring to our attention. But then in concept is pretty much all dedicated bus rapid transit lane. And in terms of the comments, yeah, there's a balance to look at. Flooding, trees, esplanades, access, getting the vehicles, people crossing, and all these things are definitely considerations that we need to look at when we're designing what is really going to be there.
I have a question for the group. Like that question and the question. So for those of you that are supportive of transit and supportive the tax, the bond program, which the intent was to build premium transit, basically light rail, but with rubber tires, right? Was kind of the BRT goal. How would those of you in the community feel about a bus that basically ran in the right lane, pretty much like it does now, fulfilling what Metro promised?
If I understand your question, and I think I understand your question, just basically using the existing traffic that's currently there, but having that dedicated bus use the same lane every time, is that right?
Yeah, and potentially sharing the lane. You mentioned a question about sharing the lane with traffic, right?
I don't think it should go down to Lockwood at all, because right now it's just so heavy with trucks, even like right now, we can't control that. And so the fact that we have regular traffic and then the trucks, then if you're going to now have the buses, that's why they took it away. Or they took it away from McKinney and they just went on Polk. So it's in Polk right now. I mean, why are we changing it? I guess is my thing.
Yeah, and also another consideration here is, I mean, I'm not sure who would be the riders on there, but crime's a consideration.
That was a big consideration, yeah. So that time, for people to make the change from being in your own vehicle to the rail or to a bus rapid transit.
With C,
crime. Crime. How crime?
Well, I'm not sure the entire plan as to where the stops would be and whatnot, but I feel like we're a residential neighborhood right here in this, that's going through kind of the heart of it. And I'd be concerned about, it's just, it provides another access point and it's just not really an appropriate one.
I mean, I live almost next to Antoine and I take the bus. There's bus stations all along Antoine. I guess I'm a little confused about the crime concern, but I mean that's a valid concern. That's what that's what you're bringing to the table. I just
So the Eastwood Metro, our transit center, that's right there on Munger and Lockwood and all that. That transit center there has a lot of transients. My real estate that just like on that street on Munger has gone down in value because of transients and transportation and walking and just different things going on. I can only see that it's going to go worse if we do that right in the heart of our Eastwood. That pocket there is just the houses, I can still sell them, but the houses that I have there definitely have a harder time selling than I do if I have it in Broadmoor or if I have it in Eastwood or if I have it other places other than an area of the transit center area. So that's my point there too.
Yeah. So we're talking about pretty much bus stops, not a new transit center anywhere in the vicinity. So it would be what's existing in terms of bus stops along Lockwood. They're just a little bit larger bus stops, but not a new transit center like Eastwood. Eastwood is going to stay, and in fact, we would do whatever, a new station there for that BRT. But the bus stops would be a little bit larger, but it's not a transit center per se. It's like a rail stop, a little bit smaller than a rail stop. And that's what it would be along the Lockwood area. It's basically a bus with a bus stop, not no new transit centers. I just want to make that clear.
For clarity, the size of a bus stop or the size of a rail stop, because those are very.
So yes, they are. David, what is the size of the one, like the split?
They're about 70 feet long, the platform.
Yeah, so sorry about that. So it's not a bus stop. It's more like the rail stop is more comparable.
Yeah, again, the rail stops are 200 feet long. A bus stop is, 10 feet, these are 70 feet. Yeah, so they're dedicated, race facilities. You saw the picture of them. They're not as big as a light rail because the trains there's not two buses running together.
Right.
But it's a nicer facility, but not a big transit center with all sorts of space for people to hang out, right?
I think to answer David's question from earlier, if the traffic is going down the right lane, I personally would feel a little better about sharing that lane traffic as opposed to needing eminent domain or some sort of disruptive construction project that would take up more green space in our neighborhood. In the same way that I feel like I would be more likely to support a BRT project that also, just like normal traffic cars, had to stop for the train. I mean, I think when we work together with our rail partners and with our neighborhoods to be less disruptive and more cooperative, that's going to be more of a helpful project for everybody involved. And I think if you have equal grade transportation for road traffic and BRT traffic competing with the rail, that just goes to show that wheel transportation and rail transportation have to be friendlier neighbors, as opposed to needing to construct more or disrupt more or use more eminent domain to buy new properties along those the BRT lines.
Yeah, I mean, and our intent for the most part is to basically use the existing right of way, right? And not disrupt. There might be some areas where we need to acquire, but definitely one of our big goals is to remain in the existing right of way so that we're not adding more pavement or disrupting properties, basically private property. So that's one of the big goals that we're trying to achieve with this project as we move forward.
I'm gonna.
May I?
Who I didn't see who.
That was me, Paul.
Paul, if it's okay, I'd like to jump on. I have to acknowledge we're 15 minutes past the hour at this point, and it's likely that there are more questions than we can have answers to. So I think I saw an email from Metro in terms of follow-up. If we could send questions there, we'd appreciate that. But let's see, there is a person who I totally missed their questions who posted them early on. And I'd like to give Lisa a chance here with these two questions. And one you started to cover there. Is Metro projected to use eminent domain in any areas along Lockwood for this project? I heard probably not, but if you could confirm that, that would be great. And then the other piece is, I'm less familiar with this project, but Lisa mentions a roundabout that is going in at Canal and Lockwood. Is this project affected by that? How will they work in sync or in opposition of each other? If you could address those two things, I would really appreciate it.
So the roundabout, yes, we're aware of that project. We are working with the city on that. They have asked us to explore how it would work together. It doesn't work very well together. And so we're still in conversations with the city to see what kind of maybe beautification, because there is, so our teams are going to get together. Like there is a larger right of way in that area. And so it's like, what can the Metro project do to sort of beautify that area, but a roundabout would not be very compatible with BRT in that location. So we're aware, and we're talking with them about that project. The other question was the right of way. So like I said, we are in concept development. We have not completed our survey, but it is our intent of the project not to disrupt private property do acquisitions or do any takes, basically. And so we are trying to stay within the existing right of way. And, you know, I don't want to say completely no, because there might be a little corner here or there that we might need to, but I just, you know, in general, we're trying to not, and I'm not right now, I'm not aware of any, because we haven't done our survey to see, but we're trying to stay within the existing right of way.
Thank you. I know that there's at least 2 other hands up. I also have personal questions I would love to ask, but I think what I would ask instead is that when can we have Metro back again to continue the discussion on this project and understand better the impacts of the project as you move forward with different design options. So maybe if we could communicate via email about having you back in a few months, I think that would be great. Also, if it's very time sensitive in terms of our input, we'd much prefer to have a town hall sooner rather than later. But we will certainly circulate what you've shared with us today and try to get more voices than just the 30 or so folks that are here in the call today, because we're a lot bigger neighborhood than just this. So Paul and Paul, I'm very sorry we can't get to your additional questions at this time, but do appreciate you asking them. Does that sound okay to our Metro folks?
Yes, definitely. Would like to come back and visit with you. I will let Christine and the public engagement team sort of let us know what the best setting is for the next meeting, and when we will have something. We're hoping to have something for people to respond to a little bit more, you know, maybe more graphics or something a little bit, you know, that we know a little bit more about the projects as we move forward. So we want to be transparent as we move forward. So we'll let you know, but definitely we'll be in touch. Send your questions though on your concerns, and we'll make sure that, you know, that'll help us sort of prepare ourselves for you next time we see you, next time we meet. But we really appreciate your concerns, your questions, your feedback. It's really important, and we appreciate you being engaged and letting us know how you feel about the project.
I appreciate that. And Anita had a question here, is if we could save the questions, Kyle or myself will save the chat. So if you had questions that were not addressed, we'll hold on to them. I can get them all together and send one email over on behalf of the folks on the call today. So if you had questions that were unanswered, can you stick them in the chat, and we'll make sure we send those over to Metro and send out a follow-up email afterwards once we hear back.
Danielle, I have a quick question. I was going to say, if will I, for instance, have access to the recording just so I can make sure I have all the questions as well? Because, you know, y'all were going so fast that I wasn't able to write them all down. So I want to make sure I get those.
Yes, I can certainly share a copy of the recording. This is actually the first meeting we have recorded in a while. But Kyle, who's our secretary, or myself will send those out to you. I think that's a great idea, and appreciate you taking the time to go back and listen to those questions again. I wanted
all your comments and questions are very important to all of our team. So I know, you know, that's why we want to make sure we have them at least, you know, so we can address them or anything. And if we didn't answer your question, we can answer it in the future. So it's really important to us to make sure we have them. So thank you, everybody, for your comments and concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today and answering our difficult questions.
Absolutely.
Before we move on to the last segment of our agenda, if I just wrap up by saying thank you very much, Metro, for coming. It's really hard to summarize the concerns, and we have different concerns based on how we get around town and why we live in this area. So we probably don't have a consensus in this group. So as president, I'm trying not to color this with my own opinions about the project, which I will voice as a public citizen later on. But the reoccurring concerns I heard overall from the neighborhood in this call today is that we are aware that the train causes issues for pedestrians, bicycles, transit, and personal vehicles as it is now. A rapid transit line is probably not going to be rapid if it has to wait for the trains in the way we do. An overpass feels very surprising to a lot of us, and we can only envision a negative overpass. So maybe you can help us overcome that and see if there's also other ways to get around the train traffic there, because this community values the fact that we are a historic community filled with streets that are lined by trees. And we'd like to try to protect that and balance that with the needs of increased mobility and multimodal mobility in our area. So I'm sure I colored that a little bit, but that is what I have heard or am taking away from as president, and I can't wait to have more conversations with the neighborhood to get a better sense of what people's concerns are and what they want to see with this project. So thank you very much. With that, I'm going to briefly move us on to the last part of the agenda here. So let me share my screen again. So the last part of my agenda, as I'm pulling it up here, is related to some community updates. And the very first thing I want to start by sharing verbally is that there will be no, I definitely have this wrong on here. There will be no May meeting. We are in April. I'm still trying to share my screen. So ignore my typo here that says no meeting in April. We will actually have no meeting in May because we're bringing back Spring Fiesta. So we invite all of our neighbors to come out to the Park Esplanade on May the 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. The Civic Association will be bringing tacos and ice cream, as well as lawn games. No bouncy house this year. We're trying to spend less money on events, but do more of them. So bouncy house seemed like a way to save some money, and we could do some other fun things instead. So that's, again, Park Esplanade near Lockwood, and Thursday, May the 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. The next update that I had here, many of you maybe have noticed all the trees that went in on Lockwood. Our board was not sure where they came from, but in reaching out with East End Management District, there are 351 trees that were planted along Lockwood over the past, I don't know, I was away. It was 2 weeks ago or so. If you're curious, those are pink flowering crepe myrtles along the southbound side, and a mix of crepe myrtles, live oak, water oak, and American elms along the northbound lanes. East End Management District is going to be watering them and trimming them until they have been established. So you should watch for them in the area taking care of that. And I look forward to seeing what those trees look like in 10, 20, 30 years, because there's only one way we got those beautiful live oaks in our neighborhood, and it's because someone chose to plant them many years ago. I mentioned Spring Fiesta, so I'm a little bit out of order here. The other piece I wanted to mention is that one of our neighboring TERS in the East End, TERS 15, has a mobility plan survey out. You can take that survey between now and Friday, and you can get it by going to bit.ly/mobility survey 15, or if you just go etohouston.com/TERS-15, it'll bring it up. They ask questions about transit mobility, bike mobility, and pedestrian mobility in the East End. So if you frequent that area over towards Edo, please fill it out and give them some feedback. Two other pieces related to Eastwood Park. This Saturday, Eastwood Park is having a beautification event. So from 8 to noon, if you're interested in helping beautify and clean up our park, please head over to Eastwood Park. And I think we've said this so many times, but the comment period for the Eastwood Park Master Plan ends on April 15th. So get those comments in. The website for that is beheardharrisburg.com. And I believe that was the end. Does anyone, Kyle, was there any community updates that I've missed?
Not that I know of. I'm always open to hearing more if anybody has any.
Perfect. I appreciate that, folks. And with that, I'm going to go back to the top of the agenda with a couple of standing business items that we missed. So Kyle, starting with you, do you have a secretary's report for us?
Yes, I do. So in the March 7th meeting, we discussed the board shuffling, I guess you would say. and we made the announcement that there would be a vote, and that vote already happened earlier in the meeting. So Paul will stay on as a board member, and Lindsay will join up, replacing Mary Lynn, who was a board member serving as vice president. Nathan is now the vice president, and Lindsay will just come on as a director. We restarted the communications committee. I'll get to those minutes in a little while. Lindsay talked about the train committee and her website, trainabuse.com, amongst other things, and getting money for the for some kind of infrastructure over here to deal with trains. And we had Sally Alcorn spoke briefly. We had a number of elected officials, actually. I might just skip over that. We had Juan Antonio Sorto from the Buffalo Bayou Partnership talking about different projects that they were working on, and how there's 3 different sectors, the west sector, downtown, and east, and they're currently trying, now is the time when they're focusing on the east sector of the bayou to make improvements there with the expansion of Tony Marone Park, extending the hike and bike trail there, and then amongst other things, let's see, did I miss anything from that? No, I think that was mostly it. And then we sort of concluded the meeting with some community updates, and you mentioned the Center Point drilling new service lines. I guess they're main lines in the area, and you gave a contact for that. A couple more events, and then we closed out after that. So that was a general membership meeting from March. My communications committee minutes are a little bit interesting too. We got back together for the first time in a while, and we decided we're going to make a yearly communications plan to help us decide what it is that we're actually communicating, how we're doing it, and how much it's going to cost. We actually, in the last board meeting, got a small $100, $150 from the previous postcard project we had left over. So we folded that back into our operating budget. We also talked about how we're going to advertise for the Spring Fiesta. And if we are going to put out a newsletter, it sounded like at the last board meeting, everybody liked the idea and wanted us to come up with a timeline for that. So I'll say right now, if anybody has any content for a possible future newsletter, send it to info@eastwoodcivicassociation.org, and I'll definitely try and get it into a newsletter. And if you know any businesses that want to talk to us, let me know about that too, same place. And I believe that was the majority of it. There's some website maintenance, but I won't, it's pretty boring. So that's about it.
So Kyle gave us 2 separate sets of minutes, but Kyle, for the first set, which was the minutes from our last Civic Association general meeting in March, I'm mixing up my months now, but it was March. You need a motion to approve those minutes, is that correct? I'm gonna motion it. I saw Tina's hand raised, Corbin's hand raised. Is there any opposition or discussion of those minutes? Seeing none, going to approve those. And I think with that, I would like to adjourn us and say thanks again for Metro. They're still on the line. It's important to have these conversations, and we had a lot of tough questions for them. And I hope for our Civic Association, I see you guys all out on the Esplanade on May the 12th, weather permitting, and we get back together in person as a group. I really am looking forward to it. And thank you all for joining us. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Clay moves. I saw Corbin raise his hand and Polani to second. So motion to approve. Thanks for all. Have a great evening.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Danielle. Great job.
Great job,
for having
Danielle.
us.
Hoping the comments and the video got collected this time. We'll see.
I have definitely
bye, y'all.
downloaded the chat, so.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, well, this will be an experience. We'll see how this comes out.